Welcome to Avant-Garde Entrepreneur. I am so glad you're here today with me, my friend. As we move into the third quarter of the year, the kids have gone back to school. Companies are looking at wrapping up their yearly initiatives. And we can go from this relatively, really chill vibe of the dog days of summer or the depths of winter, depending on the hemisphere that you're in, to this frenzied energy to just get it all done, to check off the tasks, to reach off the goals, and to do it all with perfection. If you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you know that I am really proud of being a recovering perfectionist who's gotten really good with the messy excellent, meaning we give attention to detail, we focus on quality over quantity. And while we don't air our dirty laundry, we do show up authentically and talk truth about real life in social business. Today, I am so excited for you to meet a wonderful human who gives us permission to release the pressure to be perfect, even release ourselves from the pressure to be great. Instead, her motto is to live a life that's good. Live a life that's good. Recognize it's amazing. And that is how we thrive. As we're rolling into the third quarter of the year, there couldn't be a better person to learn from than her. Heather Campbell is the author of the book, Good is Amazing. And I am holding it up if you are watching it on YouTube. It's beautiful and yellow. You can't miss it when you're shopping for it. As the CEO and founder of Ready, Set, Recover, Heather empowers people to get ready for and recover from surgery in a better way by focusing on all the non-clinical aspects of surgery that no one really talks about. And in doing so, it not only helps the patients, but she also helps surgeons, hospitals, and insurance companies. Prior to being an entrepreneur, she was an entrepreneur, holding senior leadership roles in media companies such as the VP of Synergy and Brand Integration at ESPN and VP of Alchemy at Odyssey. Creating and supporting community has always been a staple in Heather's life, and she even helped found a public middle school. Heather competed for and won a full merit scholarship for her MBA at New York University, or NYU. And after almost 30 years in New York City, she now lives in the mountains of Massachusetts in the United States with her husband, 2 children, and her dog, Tobin. Heather, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Heather, you have had quite a career. Can you tell us a little bit about the early part of your life, sort of leading up to some of the big moves, where you grew up, maybe a little bit about your family life? Because we do have a global audience, and I think it's really helpful for people to understand that family life and growing up life is different in different parts of the world.
Absolutely. Yes. So I had, oh my gosh, in so many ways, a wonderful, idyllic childhood. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the Midwest. While I had a very small immediate family, it was me and my mom and my sister. I'm one of 23 cousins on my mom's side. So I was constantly surrounded by family. When you think about some of the moments growing up, I had a cheering section at almost every basketball game, softball game, volleyball game. I had people who had my back, who showed up for me and with me. Truly, truly wonderful. Loved being there in Wisconsin. I went to the University of Wisconsin, which is the big school in that state, this a state school. Go Badgers. And there I met my then boyfriend, now husband. And he really opened my eyes up to some adventures. I thought I'd possibly move to the big city of Chicago, but instead we moved across the country and moved to California, and started a life. And I got a job. I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was not that this was going to be a plan. I got a temp job, which led to a full-time role, which led to another role, which led to. Living in California was wonderful, but the job that I had was wonderful. Learned a lot, but it was just a job. And when Steve decided to go to NYU and got in there for business school, I was happy to move back. Within the things that I've done and the places that I've been, again, I think the biggest importance for me was I found people and I had people who were cheering me on.
And it sounds like, a lot of people, their path is sort of laid out and somewhat linear. And I really appreciate the fact that your plan was there is no plan. I think, especially as young people, and you talk about this in the book, as young people, there's so much pressure. One of the spoiler alert, we're going to talk a lot about the book during today, but you talk about the pressures of going to college. Like, what's your major is one of the chapter titles. And there's
Yeah.
so much pressure for young people to have this plan to be especially in a lot of developing countries where young people are expected to take care of their parents and their siblings and their cousins. There's a lot of pressure to be an attorney or a doctor. And I really appreciate the fact that part of your story is that you went from, it was about relationships and just kind of going from one thing to the next. And you didn't have this whole huge elaborate plan. And look how amazing your life ended up.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
it's funny. I think because I've often said I don't have a plan. People are like, "Oh, I have no idea." I'm actually realizing that's not true. I have had a plan. It's just that my plan is to be happy and healthy
Yeah. Yeah.
and to take care of myself.
Yeah.
That's my plan. That as an adult, I need to put a roof over my head. I need to put good food in my stomach. I need health insurance. I live in the United States, so I have to be able to pay for that. I need a little bit more financially to have fun. But that's my plan. That then changes the decisions I make because I want to be able to live into that plan. It's funny, actually. I go back and I speak. It's almost time. Usually it's in October when I go. I go and speak at a class that I took when I was at NYU. I don't know how I took this class. I really am so confused. I took a merger and acquisitions JD MBA class.
Wow, that's intense.
And I have no interest in that. Like, I don't know what my thought process was that maybe I had just heard how wonderful the professor is because he is wonderful, David Yermak. But anyway, I found myself in this class, mergers and acquisitions. And in it, the professor talked, one of the lectures was about synergy and how if an organization is merging or acquiring and they say it's because of synergies, you know that they basically don't know what they're talking about. And they're just trying to make something up because they want to do this. So he does this whole lecture, and I graduate and I send him my business card, which is Heather Campbell, manager of synergy. That's literally what's on the card. And years later, I see he's in the news for something, and I email him to congratulate him. And I say, I don't know if you remember me. I was in your class. I sent you my card. He said, remember you. I use your card in that lecture every year. It's the biggest laugh I get the entire semester. And as we were catching up, he said, would you come in and do this class? So I think for the last 10 years or so, I've now gone in and I am the Synergy Merger and Acquisition lecturer. And it's always funny because at some point someone will say, how did you get this job? And I will look at him, and we've got a lot of shtick now after doing this for so many years. And I will say, wait, isn't there a synergy track here? We've got finance, marketing, consulting at NYU. Wasn't there a synergy track? And everyone laughs. And I say, when I went to NYU, I recognized the doors that they open. If you want one of those doors open for you, these places are incredible. Like, there's a whole process that's going to lead you right into one of these types of jobs. If you don't, you actually have to kind of fight against it a little bit and stand up for yourself and say, thank you, no, not this exactly. But they also can open so many other doors. I was just talking with someone who's now at NYU again for the executive MBA program. And I said, use that card. You can reach out to anyone right now and say, hi, I'm a student. I'm curious. Will you talk with me? And see where that leads. it's interesting because we do have so many paths. There are many, many paths. I once took a young person to the University of Wisconsin, which is where I went for undergrad, and they were considering it. And I watched this beautiful, inquisitive, curious, not yet really decided person go from when someone at the very beginning of the tour would say, "What are you studying?" The very first day, her response was, "I'm not sure." By the end of the 2 days there, her response was, "I'm going to major in international business." But she had felt so much pressure to have an
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
2 days of
Yeah.
touring,
Two
not
days.
even being in school.
Mm.
2 days was all it took for her to succumb to this not imagined pressure, it's pressure, and to join in and say, okay, I guess I need an answer.
This really sounds like a lesson about living life based on your values
Yes.
and choosing that being happy and being healthy are the two things that you value most as far as emotional or feelings
Yeah.
and following those.
Yes.
What inspired you to write the book? Got to know this.
So my joke about writing this book is I've been writing this book for 10 years. For the first 8.5 years, I only told complete strangers. No one I knew knew that this was in my head and my heart. But complete strangers, I would say, "Oh, I'm writing a book." And they would lead, "Oh, wow. You're writing a book? What's it about?" And I would tell them the title, and I would watch their bodies change. Their shoulders would fall away from their ears and they would lean in and they'd say, "Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah." And then I'd feel really, really bad because I'd think, "Oh my God, I have to write more than the title. The, the, the title is not really a book. That's a catchphrase." I could feel it. I could feel the momentum. And then I did tell one person who loved me and knows me that I was thinking about this. And I wrote this book thinking that I was sitting across the table from you, my
Mm.
reader, having coffee.
I believe it. I can hear it. Yeah, I believe that.
That's that is how I
Yeah.
wrote this book. That was that. So someone I love, who I was regularly having coffee with, would be sitting across from. I told, and she would say at various points, "Oh, that's a really good story. That's really interesting what you just told me. Is that a chapter in the book? Is that in the book? Write the book. Write it." Well, actually went so far as to introduce me to a writing coach without asking. And finally, I believe in these
Mm.
stories. And again, it's not important that you know my story. It's not that I want everyone to become, to focus on what I believe. I want you to know your story. The book starts with my mom asking me to become president of the United States.
Oh,
Something had
wow. Yeah.
happened. Yeah. So I'm in college. Something horrible happens in the world. My mother calls me. I'm a sophomore in college, crying, asking me to become president of the United States.
So she really meant
Um,
it. She wasn't
yes,
joking. Wow.
yes,
No pressure
yes.
there.
No pressure. No pressure. I've never been the president of anything. Back to the majors. I did become a poli sci major, but that has nothing to do with anything. She wanted me to be president. And I recognized, no, that that would not make me happy. I think that would be a miserable job. But you get to decide what's important to you. I was talking with someone else about the book, and they said, "But what if I want great? Like, what if fabulous, awesome? If there is something in you that is driving you, that amazing, incredible, but are there milestones on the way to getting there that you can celebrate and enjoy? Because otherwise, that could be a really lonely, difficult, awful process. And or if there isn't something, like, again, I don't want to be president. I know that. My hope in writing this book is that people will use my stories, to look at their stories and to think about what's important to them. and for them to write their stories in ways that help them, because we're writing stories on social media and conversations with parents and business partners that aren't true.
Mhm.
And it's really hard to live a story that's not yours.
It is, yes. It's interesting. I got stuck for 2 days on the first chapter on the questions in the back. So, for any of you who are watching on video, Heather does an incredible job lining out she tells the stories, then she also gives time for action and she asks questions. And the first was on what do you want? And you talked about were there any of these standout moments? I'm a kind of literal person as far as I know that books are written in different ways and some are meant for you to jump around, but I
Mhm.
typically will read something from start to finish. And I literally was stuck for 2 days on the answer to the question. And it was because it's that powerful. And it's not that the questions are complicated, but you really ask some incredible questions to help us find our own story.
Thank you.
And yeah, is there a story that of all the stories in the book, or we're going to talk about some of them, but is there a chapter that you tend to come back to again and again?
There's a lot. It's funny, actually. I just thinking about that in general, have been holding You Are Amazing parties rather than
Oh,
book launches. I've been holding, because again, it's not about me, it's
mhm.
about you. So I've been holding these parties where people come together, and I do talk about the book a little bit and read about the book, but really, I want the people to celebrate themselves and also meet each other. So these parties have been fabulous and so much fun. But at one of them, someone asked a question and to this kind of point, and I said, so for the record, I literally wrote the book. Like, I literally wrote the book.
Mhm.
Here it is. I wrote the book on this. I am not healed. I am not perfect in living into this. I keep the book by my side at my desk, not because I just want to be able to pull it up during a Zoom call, but because I go back to it 100%.
Yeah.
100% I go back to it. And to your question of is there a story? I think there's actually two themes from the book that I go back to. Number one, it's about my inner critic,
Mhm.
Blanche. Blanche, she talks
Land.
to me like this. Heather, she's got a voice that just grates on you. So definitely Blanche
Mhm.
is something I go back to. But then I also really love and go back to moments, creating joy, creating moments. And the chapter about three things that make you happy, for me, again, back to being happy and healthy. Within the chapter, I talk about, do you know three things that make you happy? And not things like going to Paris or, ringing the bell at the stock market with my new company. I'm talking about things that you could do on any given day that may be free or cost just a little bit of money. So, number one, do you know three things? Like, could you list three things? And then number two, do you do them?
That's a different one.
Do you ever do them? Do you do them daily? Do you do them weekly? Do you do them monthly? And then number three, when you do them, do you celebrate it? Do you say like, hey, nice job, self? Like, I just made myself happy. That really felt good. Those are the things that I really go back to a lot.
And those are so valuable for all of us, especially I know I mentioned to you that the entrepreneurs that I work with they're outwardly overachievers and they're inwardly exhausted. And it
Yes.
is so important to know some things that make you happy to do them and to celebrate that you
Yes.
did them. I think of how
Yes.
many times I look at my Asana project list and I look at what I got done, but then I don't acknowledge the things that weren't on the list, which actually were fulfilling for me. Or I look at maybe there were only 4 things that got done that day. And then I disregard the things that were really good that I really, really enjoyed doing. And so I appreciate you sharing that with us because it's so important to have those things and to do them and to celebrate when you do
Yes.
them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of the pieces,
Yeah.
it really, we're complex. We are complex. There's a
Mhm.
lot to feed on a regular basis. And I hear you on that outwardly impressive and inwardly exhausted. That is unfortunately the story of so many people that I know. And you can't change it if you don't recognize it. So, first of all, you have to recognize it. And then again, frameworks. What frameworks are you going to use to set yourself up to succeed? Again, back to the chapter about the three things that make you happy. I can see it from here. I have a list on my door that's just names, and they're the names of people that I have sent cards to on Fridays. Every Friday, I send a card to someone, not for thank you, not for birthday, not for anniversary, just I thought of you and I'm sending you a card. That feeds me every Friday. I feel connected to someone just thinking of them. That gives me energy. And back to the your comment on the list. I've got a list. It's impressive. It makes me I feel proud of my list. It's got a lot of names on it. And I also I do the mental I've got lists all over the place and I do the cross off to make me feel good. Just in talking with you right now, I'm recognizing there's a whole difference of making the list that I'm not crossing off, that I'm adding to.
Yeah.
That's something just again,
Yes.
right now, thinking about it, there's something different about the list that's growing and being added to versus the I've done this, I should, and still
Mhm.
celebrating maybe, but I'm liking just thinking about
Yeah.
the list of adding versus done and congratulations.
I actually started, there have been some things that I intentionally don't put on my calendar. And it kind of goes to what I talk about. I forgot that I did that. I don't recognize that I did those and celebrate them. But whenever they're on a list somewhere or they're in the background, but not as to dos, it can be so much more fulfilling to have those things in your life. So you talk about Blanche. You mentioned her earlier. Three
Yes.
pack a day smoking,
Yeah.
crotchety, nasty
Orange.
inner critic. But we do talk a lot on the show about the difference between what's going on inside and judging ourselves and the self judgment that especially
Yeah.
it's for high performing people it is just ungodly the things that we say to ourselves that we would never to say to anyone
Yes.
else. We would never even
Yes.
think those things about anyone.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
that you talk to young people at universities, you talk to adults having the you are amazing parties, you're a mom. What is your advice for people about navigating the inner their Blanche or
Yeah.
turning down the volume on Blanche and to be able to get past that to do what you're called to do, whether it's
Mhm.
something big or small.
A bunch of different things. Some things that are just really tactical. So really small tactical things. Number one, we now I'm holding up a phone for people who are not watching. I'm doing this on a computer. We have so many ways to communicate these days. Really, we have so many ways to be ignored. And we expect because the communications can happen so quickly and the communication seems to give us indications that the communication has been received. So my phone says delivered, and I don't actually have this, but you can check to see, oh, the email was open, read receipt. Means nothing. Means nothing. Unless you are, now with AI, I would actually say possibly even in front of the person watching their mouths move. Silence is silence. That's all it is. So, number one, recognizing that it's not just communication tools, it's ignoring tools. So, don't fill the silence with negativity, is the first thing. We also, again, back to that inner critic, receive information often very critically. So, great example. I was on another podcast, and before it happened, they asked me for some information. And so I sent them some information, and they sent a one-line response that said, "This seems a little light."
Oh, ouch. Well, or it could be, yay, that's what I want.
Or it could be, I want to set you up to succeed.
Yeah.
This, all it was is a sentence. The
Yeah.
person did not say, you suck. They
Mhm.
just said, this feels a little light, but Blanche was blaring.
Mhm.
Yep, she got you. You're light.
Mhm.
Been called out. You're really not that smart. This really isn't that helpful.
Mhm.
It was also for, the University of Chicago Booth MBA
Mhm.
program. So I'm judging myself before I even start this process.
Mhm.
This seems a little light. So my next tactical suggestion within all of this is when you get something that makes you go ooh or take a breath, smile, read it with a different intonation. Don't read it with your Blanche voice. Tell
Mhm.
Blanche to shut up and to read it with a smile. Huh, this seems a little light. Huh, maybe you could do more. Add to it in a positive way. That you don't know. We again with the ways we communicate, there is no verbal intonation. We add a negative intonation in our
Mhm.
heads. So with that example, I took a breath. I thought maybe she's trying to help me. And so I started with that. I call it the positive presumptive close. How can you come in with assume the best, not the worst? So I came in and said, thank you so much. You are trying to set me up with your listeners in the best way possible. When you say this is too light, do you mean it's just too short? Do you mean I didn't conclude enough? I gave you the setup, but not the conclusion? Or do you mean you'd like something that's a little more scientific in nature? Thank you so much for wanting to set me up to succeed. She wanted a conclusion. That's all she
Mhm.
wanted. She wasn't saying it was terrible. She loved it. But I went right into that negative. Those are some of my suggestions.
Those are great suggestions and very easy to do.
Well, very easy if you can
Oh,
take that breath.
yes, 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 yes.
I mean,
Simple. Maybe not easy,
right,
but simple. Yes.
right.
While we're talking about pressure and
Mm,
Blanche, I love your chapter on building the next unicorn.
mm,
And, we put so much pressure on ourselves. You shared a great story about your daughter
mm.
in her Etsy shop. And in the chapter, you give us permission to quit something or to let something go. Can you share a little bit more about that and the importance of being able to let something go?
It's interesting as adults. So the story about my daughter, I think, is a wonderful example of, here's this young person who's already feeling pressure. They've created an Etsy shop, but it's not making money. Their things aren't working well. They've got other things to do. They're 13 years old, but they feel like, am I a failure? Literally, am I a failure if I close this thing? So I could see it there, just in terms of this this crazy, crazy pressure. I have felt it too. You say you're going to do something. How do you how do you let it go if it's not serving you anymore? Part of the way you do that is also setting yourself up to seed beforehand. We are adults. And I'm assuming most of the people listening to this podcast, we are adults. We have to, again, roof over your head, food in your belly. If you're in the United States, health insurance. But within that, what decisions are you making to set yourself up to succeed and make it easy? So if in fact you decide, no, you know what, I'm in a situation and I'm miserable. Actually, when I first moved, when we first moved to New York City, Steve, like I said, was going to school. It was my job to make money
Mhm.
because we had to live. And I got a job. And I had been working at Wells Fargo Bank. I'm not a banker. I'm not, again, all of these stories about banking and mergers and acquisitions. That's not me. But I got a job at Merrill Lynch in advertising, and it was a lot of money.
Mhm.
Like I was being paid well, and I was responsible for our life. I was
Mhm.
paying the rent. But I walked in one day, and again, if you're just listening, my hands are now in a fist. And I was walking in to push the revolving door, and my hands went up in fists. And I thought, that is not good. This is a physical manifestation of how I am feeling, and this is not good. I don't want to live my life where on a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, I am going into work already body crunched, feeling all tight and yucky. And I went in and I called HR because there was things going on with the job. And I went home and Steve was studying and he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What? What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, why are you home?" And I said, "What time is it?" And he said, 12:30. And I said, "Oh, I must have quit my job." And he said, "Yay." Um, but I could do it because the apartment we decided to rent wasn't that much money. We weren't sure how we were going to be making things happen. And we were both still on school insurance. And we didn't go out to eat and do DoorDash and Uber Eats every night. We could make that decision. I could give myself that breath. But it's not easy. And it's also not easy emotionally to say, I may have made a mistake and this is not the path. And you said it earlier, and so it's such an important thing. We have this idea of linear, constant upward. Life is sideways and backwards, and drive your car. You will go off the land and into the ocean if you just drive your car linear.
Yes.
You can't do it.
Yes.
You can't drive your car only linear forward. You can't drive yourself only linear forward.
And I think that's such an important point about being able to let things go and listening to your body. Because when something, in my experience, when there's this balance between, there could be something that's uncomfortable because it's your next upgrade or your next area of growth. But there on the alternatively, and we can tell ourselves it's that, but alternatively, there could be something that just needs to go. It's not in our nature. It's not the best thing for us. But until we eliminate that thing or take that chance to quit that job, there's not enough energy in the universe for that thing to manifest. There's not enough space.
When I was at NYU, again, there's this process. They can get you amazing jobs. There's a whole process. And my second year, I got a call from McKinsey Consulting, which if you're in consulting, they are, you bow down to McKinsey. They are amazing. They're incredible. And they called and said, "We'd like you to come in and interview." And I said, "I think you have the wrong person." And they said, "No, we got your resume through someone else, not you. We'd like to have you come in and interview." And I said, "Oh, fabulous." And they started asking me these questions. What was my grade point in my major? What was my GMAT score? All of and I didn't know the answers. I didn't even know what my major was. So I promised them that I would get them the information that they needed. And we made the appointment. And then I hung up the phone and I was kind of walking around my apartment, discombobulated. And they had caught me. I was on my way to go to pottery. Again, if you're listening, I'm now showing a piece of pottery that I made.
That's beautiful.
I'm a potter. I love doing it. I've been doing it forever. So I go to pottery and I sit down on the wheel and I put my hunk of clay down on the wheel and I start to try to center it. And I can't center this clay for the life of me. I've been doing pottery at this point for years. I know how to throw huge 20-pound pieces. I cannot get this simple 3-pound ball of clay centered. It is flying everywhere. And I sit back and I take a breath and I think, okay, am I scared? Is this nervous energy? Because they're pretty impressive and I haven't thought of this path and it's a little nerve-wracking. I'm going to have to study. I'm going to have to do stuff to do this well. Or is it wrong? Because if I go and I interview with them, one of two things are going to happen. Either I'm not going to get it and I might fall flat on my face, which isn't going to feel very good, or Worse yet, they might offer me the job. And if McKinsey offers me the job with a $50,000 signing bonus and this, it's going to be really hard at that point to say, so thank you. But I actually want to be in management at this point. I want to know the product or service that I'm working on constantly. I want a life. I don't want to be traveling like nuts. That's not what McKinsey is going to offer me an incoming from an MBA program. I am scared and nervous, but it's not right. And so I literally got off the wheel, called them back, and said, I want to thank you. You literally have turned my head. My head is spinning. I'm so excited. You are so kind. This is not the right place for me right now. There are so many students who will wow you. You should be talking with them. And I hope that if I ever do want to come to you, you'll take my call, but this isn't right for me right now.
Very brave.
Yeah.
Very,
It felt good.
yeah. And did you go back to did you go back to your clay?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And immediately it was like, boom, centered, mug, done. It was also interesting though, again, thinking about the situation, I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell any of my friends.
Yeah.
I couldn't, and I knew I shouldn't because they weren't going to support that. The environment I was in would not have supported that. And
Mhm.
I felt strong in that moment. There are times when you want to socialize your decisions to
Mhm.
see, like I'm playing, but if you're not, again, back to being an entrepreneur, doing like if you know where you are and what you don't have to ask other people's opinions. You get to do what's right for you.
Sometimes you know that you know. Very often as entrepreneurs, I think we have this intuitive sense. We can't explain it. We just know it's right. And it really doesn't matter what anybody else says.
Right.
As for young people for entrepreneurs who are working with, whether they're working in a team environment or they're a team of one, or most all of them have their businesses exist solely to serve people.
Mhm.
And there can be a lot of pressure, as we talked, a lot of pressure, expectations, and this need to have the answer. They're often counselors, mentors. People come to them with their deep seated issues and challenges. And one of the I will call it a technique. I don't know if it's a technique or not, but you talk about this in the book. It's and it seems to me the best way to describe it is a de-escalation technique or a way to respond when you don't have the answer. Can you share about this and why it works?
There are a bunch of different things actually that come into play. Back to asking people for opinions, soliciting advice. When you're doing it, think about who you're going to. Very, very often, I do use how, and we'll talk about that, but I also find it fascinating when people come to me for advice, for thinking things through. They know what I'm going to say. Like I am very open. Like people know who I am. They know what I stand for. They know what I do, what I like, what I profess. I am very vocal. And very often when they start and they ask, I kind of lean in and I'm like, you know exactly what I'm going to say. And you want me to say it because you know it too. So just we'll have this conversation, but to be clear, you know it inside of you. You've come to me to get the validation. So sometimes it's that. But often when people come, I certainly don't have the answer at all times. With a head tilt and just a little silence allows them to be bringing the conversation together. And it allows me to stop my escalation in my mind. It's a double de-escalation, if you will. You know, one of the things they talk about in parenting, if your child asks you a simple question, don't extrapolate it to the worst thing that's going on. And that, you know, just answer the simple question. I take it to another extreme of not answering the question at all. Not yes or no, not right or wrong, not good or bad, but just huh, and silence and a breath. and seeing where people go with that. That often leads you to number one, they actually feel listened to. I had a wonderful team of people at ESPN at one point, and I was giving feedback, giving a review. I do a 360 review. I also schedule the review on one day, and then we have a half hour the next day so you can come in and tell me all the things that you wish you had thought of in that moment. So got the whole thing set up. But one guy in particular, we're doing his review, and I said, so I'm going to tell you lots of specifics. And here's my biggest recommendation: take a breath. And it was so beautiful. He started to talk right there. And I said, great, beautiful, thank you. Don't talk. Take a breath. Because when you take a breath, people actually recognize you're listening to them. So that's a piece of it as well. When you're an entrepreneur, if you've got teams of people, do they think you're listening to them? Do they think you're soliciting their advice? Do they feel included? When I had the job at ESPN, I used to joke that I spoke many languages. I spoke ESPN, we had fans. I spoke ABC, they had viewers. I spoke Disney Parks and Resorts, they had VIP guests. Taking a breath lets you listen to the language of the other person who's speaking and give them a chance to actually give you more information. That's, yeah, the ha can be used when child, entrepreneurship, community. I do a lot of community work. And again, just I like to do the head tilt too. It's, I think, welcoming.
And I think that works in many cultures. I think,
Yes.
body language is different, but I think that works. Can't think of any culture that wouldn't work for.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting that what you say, taking a breath, often people just want to be heard. They just need to get it out. So even though we feel like I've got to have the answer, you really don't. A lot of times it's either the first scenario you put forward, which was, you already know what I'm going to say. Then the second with the is for them to be heard and to feel like someone is actually considering what they're saying or what they're asking. It makes them feel incredibly valuable. And you don't even have to strain your brain for it.
You so kindly mentioned that, I'm asking questions in the book and then leaving some space. Again, that's what this is.
Yeah.
These are questions for you. And at some point, there was something in the book and I asked a question. I'm like, and by the way, disagree with me. I have viewpoints. I have ways that I've looked at this, and disagree. That's totally great. Just do it because you want to disagree, not because your parents wanted you to disagree, or your professor wanted you to disagree, or the venture capitalist wants you to disagree. Again, thinking about the comment I made about, what I'm going to say. Someone else recently was asking me about return on investment. People are hounding me for return on investment, and I want to do something different. And you also have to think about who you're letting invest. When you let someone invest, they get to have comments.
Yep.
Are you inviting people in? And I'm not going to say who always agree with you or just stroke your ego, but do they feed what you want to have fed? Again, we're talking to adults here. You get to decide.
Yeah.
Who are you going to let invest? It's
interesting that Scott Nichols with Velocity Pitch Decks, he's the one who introduced us. Mm-hmm. He talks about that when we an episode in the spring, and it has been really powerful for people to hear that be careful. Not all money is good money. Not all investors are good investors. And it's so important to have that filter of being aware of who you're asking, whether it's for money or advice, and keeping that in perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There was an investor, I was at a thing at NYU, and an investor was talking, and he said, "You don't want my money." And I thought, "Ooh, I'm going to listen to you. This is going to be a good conversation."
Yeah.
You need to recognize, and again, it's not just about financial investment, it's everything. Emotional investment. Who do you want in your head?
You talk about the word just. And So we have an international audience, multiple languages. And so this might take a little bit of explaining, but if you're listening, you speak English. So we're not talking about justice. We're talking about the word just. And there's likely some equivalent word in many, many languages. It might often be used in collective cultures where no one wants to stand out or to the detriment of others. But when you talk about the word just, you say that the word just minimizes our efforts, our energy, and expertise.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about, or from the book about, in the context of making our life that good is amazing? What does just, and what does it mean to sort of eliminate that as much as we can from our vocabulary?
Thank you. Yes, it's very funny whenever I write the word just now, I can hear myself justifying it to myself. Like, no, in this situation, it's okay because I actually want to minimize what I'm talking about. I now have this whole like danger, danger, you're using the word. I have thought about it a lot in terms of when I was a mom at home. So I had an amazing career at ESPN. I had a child. I decided I was going to stay at home with that child. And when people would talk, because I was still in situations with other business people and people who were moved, they would say, Heather, what are you doing? I would say, I'm just at home now. I'm just a mom. And like even just saying it, you can see me if you're watching, I go down smaller, just saying it. I'm just a mom. I'm just the word just, we use it a lot. I think possibly females more than men. And we're couching. We don't want to overstep. We and it immediately takes us to a place of in order to be anything, you have to be everything. In order to feel celebrated, you must be big. Just allows us to qualify ourselves. Like we're going to pre-qualify ourselves before you can actually shut me down. So I'm going to be small so you can't make me feel small, but I'm already now making myself feel small. So it also, again, one of the stories in the books is listening to teachers, two of my daughter's teachers talk about, oh, we're just teachers. And, we're just with the kids. And, we're just doing this. And the teachers in New York City that my kids went to school with kept 33 children alive every day.
Yeah.
They would take trips on the subway of New York City. These kids lived every day and they learned how to do math, how to read, about what's going on in the world. It made me so angry hearing them say the word, we're just teachers. And then again, the cycle that gets created, well, we shouldn't only pay them a little bit because they're just doing that. We shouldn't pay mothers at all because they're just doing that. The word actually really makes me angry. And I hear it also when people are coming to talk about things that are coming up, asking you to do something. For example, could you just go and do XYZ? Anytime someone says, can you just do something? You know that they are minimizing it, that they don't think it's big or hard or important. So in your mind, it's already small, but it's kind of confusing because it might still be hard. It's not giving credence to the amount of energy that something can take. And then the last part, and it makes me think about three things that make you happy. No one celebrates anything that you just had to go do. Why would we celebrate that? Why would we pay attention to it? Yeah. We just did it. And so it's this horrible, horrible cycle of making things small. And I want us to start making things bigger. Yeah. We need to celebrate more. We need to pat ourselves on the back more, pat each other on the back more. Why are we stingy with that? What are we worried about? This is the good free stuff. If I make you too happy and I make you feel too good, what's going to happen? Oh no. People might want to start doing more and engage. Like, why? why are we stingy with the kudos and the everyone's got a blanch in their head?
Yeah.
We have so much of that. We've got a lot more to overcome before I'm worried that we're going to be creating all of these people who are going to just be like, I'm so wonderful and I'm not going to, we're far from that.
Yeah, we are.
So
I agree. I feel like we all need to help each other silence the blanch, and
yes,
giving compliments, giving kudos, giving thanks. Those are things that you just never know what someone's got going on in their head. There's a good chance it's negative.
yeah. When I think again about my mom saying, will you be president? My mom wants me to change the world. Like that's what she wanted. Something bad was happening. My mom wanted me to change the world. I change the world every day. Every day. The other day, I was in town in Great Barrington, and there was a woman. I was doing something on my phone. I think I was actually doing a video, and realized I was in her way all of a sudden. Pregnant mom, 2.5-year-old, 6-year-old, all getting into the car. And I now have stopped doing what I'm doing on the street. And I look at her and I said, oh, I'm sorry I'm in your way. And she said, oh, that's okay. And I said, by the way, I see you and you're amazing.
Oh,
And she just stopped and looked at me. And I said, you are in it. And I see you. Look at you lovingly sing to your child as you get them in. I see you. And you should get an award today. And she almost started crying. And that changes the world. And it's real. I really do see. I mean, I had 2 kids getting in and out of a car. It's amazing. It really is incredible. Yeah. So yeah, I want to celebrate them. I want to celebrate the moments.
Well, Heather, you are a shining example of how we can change the world. And it doesn't have to be these ginormous, grandiose gestures. That we can change the world by listening, by showing compassion, by giving a gentle and kind compliment, a kind word, and also being kind to ourselves and celebrating the victories of the things that are, maybe they might seem every day, but they're really not in the context of a lifetime. What are the things that are really going to matter more at the end of our time? So thank you so much, Heather. I'm going to link to Heather's website in the show notes. So this won't be an Amazon link. This will be Heather's website link so that you can order the book from her. And we will also link to her LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook if you would like to connect with her. So Heather, thank you so much again. You have been the most wonderful guest, and I am so grateful to know you. I am grateful to have read your book. It has changed my life. It has changed my perspective. And your story is exactly what you said you wanted to happen. I saw myself in your stories, and I listened to your stories, and it was a reflection for me to think about things and handle things and perceive things in different ways.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. And I love what you're doing in terms of offering to other people. You're offering a breath. That is what you do with this podcast. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather.